Hey Retro fans, welcome to this episode of Retro Gaming Memories. In this episode I'm going to be talking about the Commodore 64. The memories that I've got of it, and just a little bit about some of the games that I remember. So this version I have here is the Commodore 64C, which was a kind of later revision. The original one had the brown keys and all that and was fondly called the bread bin because of the shape of it. So this was a slightly later revision of it, the 64C. Not much had changed apart from it started to look like the sort of Amiga shape. And the only other difference that I'm aware of is they used a slightly different sound chip in this, or a cut down version of the SID chip. So some things, audio samples and things like that, sampled speech, sound kind of quieter on this than they do on the Breadbin 64. Anyway, we'll have a quick look at the machine itself. So the keyboard, standard stuff. The keys on this, for me, are very high if you look at the angle of that, the type angle. But it's quite a nice keyboard. The keys always felt huge to me because I was used to an Amstrad. But the one thing I always loved was what key is it? It's a shift lock. It stays in. I always liked that for some reason, no idea why. Anyway, the back of it, there's nothing on that side. The back of it, you've got, I think that's your cartridge port or expansion port, your RF, your video, what's this one? That's a serial port. That's a cassette adapter, and that is, what was that one again? The user port. I've no idea what that was used for. Possibly disk drive connections and stuff, I'm not sure. I only ever used the cassette port on it. And my pal back in the day, which I'll tell you about in a minute, had cartridges. But anyway, the machine itself, I suppose on that side, your two joystick ports and your power. That's it. The vents at the back don't do anything apart from vent air. And on the bottom there's nothing much exciting. Nice shiny Commodore sticker that you can't see now. There we go, you might get there. Does it tell you when this one was built? No. Thought I might have told you when it was built. But anyway, Commodore 64. I'll put it down here for now. So, if you watched any of my previous videos, you'll know that I didn't own a Commodore 64 back in the day. I was an Amstrad guy. But as it was when you were a kid, you only had one computer, generally speaking. I never knew anybody that had two, let alone any more than that. But you had your friends who usually had different computers to use. So that's how I got access to Commodore 64 and Spectrums and things like that. Because like I say, I had the Amstrad. And I remember being on the bus going down to school, primary school. And I had not long moved. I shifted primary schools in primary 5. Now in Scotland we do primary 1 through 7 before you go to high school, and I don't know how that equates to the kind of English system or even the American system or anything else. But anyway, primary 5. So I was about, what age was I? God, I've no idea. 9, 10, something like that. Anyway, that's all completely irrelevant. I had moved schools. And I was on the bus going down to school. I used to just go to school myself, which was absolutely fine. Used to get the bus down, and there was a kid that I had sort of seen a few times on the bus, and he had said sort of hello and all that kind of stuff. He ended up being in the class sort of next to me. But anyway, we got talking one day as we were walking to school from the bus stop, and as was the big question whenever you met somebody new back in the 80s when you were a kid is, do you have a computer? And I was like, yeah, I've got a computer, I've got an Amstrad. And he's like, oh, I've got an Amstrad as well. I was like, oh, brilliant. So, we kind of hit it off and started talking about Amstrads and all that kind of thing. And that was great. But then one of his friends kind of joined us on the walk to school. I got introduced to him. And we were saying, got an Amstrad, and he's like, oh, I've got a Commodore 64. Alright, cool. So we all kind of became friends, this group of us, sort of more people added on to it. And that became the kind of friend base We were like the Goonies. We were a bunch of misfits. Everybody else was out playing football and, you know, whatever, smoking and doing whatever else they were doing. And us bunch of kind of nerdy misfits were all computer nerds, all going to each other's houses to play computer games while everybody else was out chasing girls and riding bikes and whatever else, all other unhealthy pursuits. But yeah, so anyway, that was my access to the Commodore 64. And this friend used to stay just 2 minutes over the road from me, so, you know, you'd get him coming in for you and saying, do you want to come back and play the Commodore? Aye, that's fine. I don't know if it was a slur at the time against my Amstrad, you know, he would come in for me to come and play, but he didn't want to play on my computer. He's like, come and play mine. So I didn't bother because it meant I was getting to play something different for my games. So we used to go down to his house and play his Commodore 64. So it was quite good because he had quite a lot of the sort of early Commodore exclusives, for want of a better term. Some of them ended up coming out on the Amstrad, so, you know, I did get versions of them, but some of them remained exclusive to the Commodore 64. I don't know if they were ever released on other systems, but certainly at that time I didn't know them being anywhere else. And the thing is, the Commodore 64, I had never seen one. It wasn't even on my radar as a kid, you know, because I had seen an Amstrad, as I've kind of mentioned in my Amstrad video. I saw that in the shops, and that was my kind of focus on the computer. I'm like, oh, that's really cool. I really fancy one of those. I had never seen a Commodore 64 until I went to my friend's house. So yeah, so I didn't know anything about them. So, you know, when he fired it up and there was this blue screen that just said ready, with this sort of purpley writing, it was totally different to the Amstrad. Although it wasn't really, because the Amstrad just said ready as well, but it was blue and yellow, so it looked totally different in my mind. And it obviously said different things, Commodore and 64K, well, that byte number of free memory and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, so it was a strange machine, and it looked like a strange beast with the separate cassette deck, that kind of rounded two-tone beige and brown cassette deck to match the bread bin Commodore 64. But anyway, we had a look at the games that he had, and I can't remember all the stuff he had, but I mean, we're talking early 80s, early Commodore stuff that he had at the time. So a lot of the stuff that I'm going to be mentioning here is very early. You know, the very early kind of games. And they're not the best games, I'll say that right now. This isn't a sort of top 10 Commodore 64 or whatever. These are just the games that I remember playing at his house, and some of them are terrible, as you'll see. Although they're not all terrible. I've got a little list just below the camera, so if you see me looking down there, that's my little reference list to remember what I'm talking about. So yeah, so anyway, the first game that I wanted to talk about, and these are all games that I loved playing on his machine, and you know, if we went to his house, I'd take him and play whatever. And the first one I'm going to talk about is Blue Max. I can't remember the publisher. It wasn't US Gold. Was it US Gold? Can't remember who published it. But anyway, when I saw Blue Max, I was like, this is brilliant. It looks amazing. It sounds great. Because bear in mind, I'd never heard of Commodore 64, let alone seen one. So, you know, to hear the SID chip doing its thing, you know, was the music and all that kind of stuff at the intro was great. And then, you know, when you actually play the game, there was so much going on with the sound. You know, you had the noise of the planes and machine guns and bombs and everything going off. So it was a bit of a feast for me to see all this going on. And the actual game itself, I was terrible at it. I sucked at it. But it was a great game. If you've never seen Blue Max, it's a World War I, I think. You basically fly a biplane and you take off with this landing strip, and it's an isometric. It reminded me of Zaxxon. Isometric kind of scrolling and you had like altitude control, so planes would fly at you. You basically had to shoot planes and bomb things, and I think you probably had mission objectives, but being back in the day, you just picked that up and you moved the joystick and you worked out what was going on. So I didn't actually know the story behind it or what you were supposed to do. You just shot stuff until you died, which for me was very often. But yeah, so it was this sort of isometric view, flying along, trying to shoot the planes, and they would fly at certain altitudes, so you had to match the altitude. And I remember there was a sort of status bar along the bottom that used to flash up letters and stuff. I've no idea what they were all about, but I think it flashed when you were at the right altitude to shoot stuff. And you had to be at a certain altitude, and I think you pulled back and fire on the joystick to drop a bomb, and you could bomb bridges and all that kind of stuff. And let's say you probably had mission objectives to, you know, blow up all the bridges or take out ammunition factories or whatever, but I just used to fly about and shoot everything that I could, usually flying into trees and stuff like that and just dying. But you could land on the airstrip. Now I don't know if that was the sort of end of the level, I can't remember, but I don't seem to remember it finishing this. I seem to remember you could land, and I don't know if you refueled and kind of got new ammunition and stuff. But I also remember it being horribly hard to land on the airstrip. You had to sort of be at the right, come in sort of nice and slow at the right altitude and right speed and all that kind of stuff to land, and sort of pull. I think you have brakes that you could pull when you were on it. I can't remember, but I just remember it being, for my little tiny brain at that point, you know, when I was used to just kind of shooting stuff and not mattering, it was a lot to go on, but I really enjoyed it. It was a great game, and I think it's kind of one of the staples in the sort of top 50 Commodore 64 games. Don't remember it coming out on any other systems. I certainly didn't see it on anything else. It never came out on the Amstrad, as far as I'm aware. I don't think it did. But yeah, the Commodore 64 was the only place I ever played it, and I really enjoyed it. It was a great game. So play it if you haven't played it. The next game that I'm going to mention, everybody has played, hopefully. If you haven't, go and play it immediately, because everybody needs to have played this game. And it's Way of the Exploding Fist. Now I do have this on my Amstrad, and I love it. It's probably my favourite fighting game, even up to modern stuff, for its simplicity and it's just the variety of moves that it's got. But the Commodore 64 version was where I played it first, and my friend took great delight in turning up the TV, because the sound for the Commodore 64 comes through the TV. On the Amstrad it's a built-in speaker, but on the C64 it was through the TV, and it had a little sort of portable TV. And while the game was loading, because the Commodore 64 didn't do the squealy thing when it was loading, when the borders were all flashing and all that kind of stuff, on the Spectrum and the Amstrad you would hear the kind of data transfer going on, all those peeps and squawks that we all know and love. But the Commodore 64 didn't do that. It was silent, or at least they might have had the volume turned down. I don't remember it making the noises anyway. But he took great delight when loading Exploding Fist, and if anybody's played this, they'll know what I'm about to say probably. Turned up the TV really loud, and you know, it was just the kind of screen that said loading and all that kind of stuff. And when it loads up the loading screen, so it's kind of just blank, and then the loading screen comes up, the loading picture. But when it does this, you get an almighty, it's a Bruce Lee kind of scream basically, and you get, it's just this kind of noise. It's a sampled speech, sampled sound of Bruce Lee sort of hitting somebody and doing his kind of victory, you know, whoa thing that he did. God, that was terrible. Anyway, yeah, if you imagine that kind of cranked out a 14-inch portable at almost full volume, I nearly shit myself. I seem to remember kind of jumping up and throwing everything that was on my lap, the joystick and everything kind of going everywhere, and him pissing himself laughing, because the Amstrad version didn't do that. But like I say, it was the first time I ever played it at his house, and when that noise came, God's sake, it took me till the actual game loaded for my heart to calm down. Oh, it was, I think I might have sworn and probably peed myself a little bit as well. It was just such a fright I got, it was ridiculous. But anyway, when the Exploding Fist loaded, it was just instantly became one of my favourite games. I didn't know the moves at the time, and he took great delight in knowing the moves but not showing me the instructions, so I didn't know what I was doing. So there was lots of kind of experimenting. I didn't know that if you've never played it, the joystick does different things depending on what you're doing. Generally, without the fire button, it's just kind of movement and ducking and somersaults and that. So you have to pull the fire button and move the joystick to do different moves. Like if you do fire and up, you'll do a flying kick and all that kind of stuff. So I didn't know any of the moves. So the first sort of 3 times that we played it, I got absolutely humped. Because, like I say, he took great delight in knowing the moves and me not knowing them. But once I got a handle on it, you know, I could hold my own, and it felt like a proper karate fight at the time. You know, everybody did martial arts back in the 80s. You know, I went to karate and all that kind of stuff. So to me, you know, in my mind, I was seeing photorealistic. You know, it's such a weird thing, and I don't know if everybody's the same or if I'm just completely weird and wired up wrong. But when you were a kid, your imagination took over the graphics. So although, you know, looking at it, if you look at the screenshots, the characters are just pixelated guys. They're very good, and the animation in it's superb. But yeah, my brain kind of took over, and I was seeing, you know, proper fighting and stuff. It's weird, hard to explain, and I probably sound like a complete Looney Tunes that should be locked up. But it's just the way I've always had a huge imagination, so it's just my brain filling in all these kind of mad things. And I don't know if anybody else used to do this as well, but I used to love, especially if you won the fight by doing a high kick. So basically you kick the guy in the face, and he'd go down in a heap and you'd win. But it was always felt great if you knew it was your victory hit. I used to just hold it, so the guy would be holding this kind of high kick, and just almost like a kind of victory stance. Obviously inspired by like Jean-Claude Van Damme and all that kind of stuff back in the day, because if he ever kicked somebody and did one of his signature split kicks or something like that, he would always sort of hold it in victory before he kind of stood back down again. So I used to do all that kind of nonsense in Exploding Fist. And the other thing I used to love doing that felt special, there was that, but those kind of things were special, almost akin to in Barbarian when you managed to get the flying neck chop and take the boy's head off. If you managed to, you know, just, there was something great about just walking straight up to your opponent and kicking them in the face and knocking them down and winning the fight, you know, without even no extra moves. Just walk straight in, kick in the face, boom, game over. I used to really like that. I sound really violent, don't I? That's terrible, but it was great fun. But the other one that used to, and it was a special victory if you won the fight, if he did a high kick and you ducked and punched him in the plums. that was a great thing to do as well. That was just such good fun, because he'd go down in a heap, you know, holding his stomach and stuff like that. Yeah, I sound like a complete Looney Tunes, don't I? Anyway, that's Exploding Fist. Dear me. Okay, to take it on a non-violent track now, I suppose. My pal had a couple of cartridges. Now I don't know if it was a pack that he got when he bought the Commodore 64, or if it was just something that he had bought or been given or whatever. But he had a game that was pretty terrible, but I quite liked it because it was simple arcadey stuff. And it was called Radar Rat Race, and it was the only cartridge I remember actually playing. I think he had, I don't know if it was called Commodore Soccer or something, some god-awful football game, but anyway, we never played that really. It was Radar Rat Race was the cartridge that he used to play, and you're a little mouse running around a maze trying to get cheese, and there's cats, and is there other mice chasing you? I can't remember, but it's basically a maze game, and it was very simple, and you know, very very simple graphics and all that kind of stuff, because it was about 1982 I think it came out. But I liked it because again it was simple, you know, you knew what you were doing straight away. I've always loved arcade games for their simplicity. An arcade game, you need to be able to walk up to it, put 10 pence in, and maybe your first game you're learning how to play it, but by the second game you should know what you're doing. So I love that simplicity, that instant grab factor of a game. You know, I don't want to spend 3 days playing a tutorial to learn how to play a game. It shouldn't be that hard. But Radar Rat Race was very simple, top-down maze game, and it was only kind of later on that I realised it was a port, a copy, or a clone, or an homage to Rally X, I think it was Namco arcade game, which you were a little car and you had to collect flags, and there was other cars chasing you and stuff like that. So it was the same type of thing. I think it was other mice that were chasing you, trying to get the cheese before you. So a very, very simple game, but great fun, and I love playing that. I used to always ask if we could play that, and his shoulders used to go, oh, for God's sake, he doesn't want to play that crap again. But you know, some people might have nostalgia for it, and some people might really enjoy it. I did enjoy it. It was good fun. You know, simple, bit like myself. Anyway, the next game I wanted to talk about was another game that I've got on my Amstrad and love. It's Bruce Lee. The Commodore 64 version was, again, the first version I played, because usually what happened is my pal had his Commodore 64, I think he had an older brother as well, and I think his brother used to buy games for it. So basically he had the computer slightly longer than I had mine, and his brother had disposable income, so he had more games than I did. So I used to go over there and play stuff and think I really liked that, and if it was available for my Amstrad, you know, that would go on my pocket money, Christmas, birthday money list. So that's usually what happened. I played it at his house first, and then I would see about getting the Amstrad version for myself. So Bruce Lee was another one of those games. I should mention about Exploding Fist as well. I was really miffed that Exploding Fist 2 came out on the Commodore 64. I really wanted that for the Amstrad, and it was only years later when I played it, I was kind of glad that I never got it, because it was a bit like Barbarian 2, where they had kind of tried something different and basically broken it and turned it into a sort of adventure, scrolling about the place and then fighting guys on occasion. Just didn't work. So I was disappointed it didn't come out for the Amstrad, and then I was disappointed when I actually did see it on the C64 and I got it for myself later. Anyway, that was a side juncture. I meant to talk about that when I was talking about Exploding Fist. But Bruce Lee, you know, stay with me, I'm all over the place today, but Bruce Lee, I remember when they loaded that up, the theme tune and all that kind of stuff. I loved the theme tune, and the 64 version looked great. I think the Amstrad and 64 versions are very similar, you know, and looks wise. So, but it looked great, you know, and I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know at the time that Bruce Lee was a platformer, you know, because obviously you think Bruce Lee, you think this martial arts superhero, you know, kicking everything that moves. So for it to be a sort of platformer collecting lamps was a bit surreal, but it was a great game, and it was a great concept, you know, being able to run about and collect lamps, a very simple platforming concept, but being able to punch and fly and kick your opponents gave you this nice little bit of strategy. And yeah, it was great. And the thing is, the Commodore 64 version differs from the Amstrad version in that you can play a 2-player mode where the second player is Yamo. I think they call him something. They call it, it's not Butchu or something. They've got a different name for him as well. On the Commodore, in the Amstrad, he was called Yamo, the green dude. Can't remember what he was called, but you could play as him. So it became a competitive. You didn't collect anything. Basically, your mission then was to stop Bruce from collecting all the stuff. You know, so you could get into slugfests, or you could just kind of try and stop him for getting the lanterns. But it gave another little dimension. It was good fun. And if you pulled down on the joystick, Yamo used to do this. We always used to say he was burping, but he used to put his hand up and it was like a call, but he'd go brrr, make this mad bizarre noise. I'm full of weird noises today, sorry, it's just totally weird. But all these little things, just you kind of get stuck in your brain and you remember it all. It's bizarre. But yeah, it was a great game. Obviously, everybody knows Bruce Lee, hopefully, and again, if you don't, go and play it immediately. It was a brilliant game, and it got ported to just about everything. Like I say, I loved it on the Amstrad and all that kind of stuff. and the little bits of strategy when you had the ninja and all that kind of stuff. Being able to punch somebody off a platform or something was quite satisfying. And there was later levels where you would run over these fountains, and I don't know what they were, fountains of acid or whatever it was, but if you ran over it there was a slight delay and then it would kind of squirt up the stuff, and if you got hit it would kill you. So I used to take great delight in running past stuff and triggering it and having Yamo or the ninja dude run into it behind you, or even better, standing waiting and they would run past it and it would trigger, but whilst it was still up you would punch them back into where they'd just come into this fountain of death. God, I've got really bizarre tendencies, haven't I? I'm a really placid guy in real life, I'm not even remotely violent, but yeah, when I'm talking about all this stuff I sound like a complete psychopath. Anyway, at least it's only in a digital world, I'm a lover, not a fighter. But anyway, Bruce Lee, great game. And the next game I wanted to talk about was another classic. I think it started its life on the Commodore 64. And way before Trials HD and all these kind of motorbike games with cool physics and all that kind of stuff, there was a Kickstart series. And Kickstart 2 is the game that I'm going to talk about. And it's a side-scrolling game where you're on your bike and you have to go over various obstacles. There's little potholes that you have to jump over or go up ramps at certain speeds and things, because if you jump too fast or too slow you'll fall off your bike. If you hit the potholes you'll fall off your bike. You have to drive over fences and stuff like that, and if you go too fast or too slow you'll fall off your bike, and it's all against the clock. And it was a great it was a great game, great fun. And when you had a go on your own, I think the computer used to play. It was basically, there was two kind of parallel tracks along the screen, and I think you were on the top, and at the bottom was the computer that would play sort of against you as a sort of ghost bike almost. Or obviously if there was two players, it would be split screen. But it was all against the clock, so you're trying to get the best time possible, so it was this real kind of mix of trying to get the fastest time possible but not making an arse of it, because you had to learn how quickly or slowly you could go over jumps and ramps and whatever else. So there was a real kind of knack to the game. It was great fun, but it was really good because you could kind of lean into your bike and all that kind of stuff, and I think if you fell off you kind of catapulted off the bike and stuff. It was good fun. And the music at the start of it was great, because it was based, and I don't know if the game itself, I think it probably was, but certainly the music at the beginning was the theme tune. There was a TV show in the 80s called Kickstart in the UK, and it was Kickstart, and it was basically guys on trial bikes, on these kind of mud bikes, driving over rocks and cars and all sorts of things, and doing at the time what seemed impossible. There'd be like logs and a vertical spiral, and these guys would do wheelies and bounce onto them and kind of drive up them, and you're like, my God, how can you do that on a bike? It's ridiculous. But as a kind of whatever 10, 11, 12-year-old kid, I'm sure it was sort of Saturday tea times it was on, but it was a staple. I used to love watching that and watching these guys doing all this sort of time trials and driving over logs and things like that, and that's where the theme tune for the game came from, and it was the same sort of concept. So it was great. It was all tied into the TV theme at the time. It wasn't licensed or anything like that. It wasn't the game of the TV show or that, but it was a very clever and timely game to bring out. So yeah, Kickstart 2, great game, and it was budget as well. It was $1.99, brilliant value. So and it had a track designer. How could I forget that? A course designer. You can make your own courses. Just humongous value and great fun gameplay for £2 of your pocket money. Genius. And if you like Trials HD on any of the kind of modern system, go back and check that out, because it's granddaddy, and it's great fun. Okay, what am I going to talk next? Booty, as in the game, not anything rude. A Firebird release it was, and again, it's not the best game. I don't think it's I don't know what it was. It was just a charm thing. I've always liked these sort of simple games, you know, for just a quick shot of something. And it was essentially a puzzle platformer. I think based on a pirate ship. And there was little pirates kind of walking about. So you were this guy, and again, I don't know the story behind it because, you know, never read the instructions back at his house. You just kind of played it. He used to say, "Oh, you just need to collect this stuff and do that and whatever." So yeah, so basically I think it was just single screen, multi-platforms, basically a representation of the innards of a pirate ship, and you could collect various things, treasures, I suppose. But you had keys, and I can't remember if they're colour coded or number coded. I think it might have had numbers on them. So I seem to remember the very first screen, the first key you can pick up is like number 1, or a matching colour or whatever, and the door that it opens is right down the bottom of the screen. And to get right down to the bottom of the screen, you have to go down ladders and time it past patrolling pirates and all that kind of stuff. And you go down into the bottom room and you open it up, and you can collect the treasure, and you get another key which opens something, I think probably way up the other end of the screen. So there was all this kind of getting keys to open certain doors to get all the treasures and kind of escape the screen. I don't ever remember getting the screen 2. And again, it's one of these things that I sucked at quite a lot of these games, but I enjoyed playing them, you know. And Booty is another one. I don't ever remember getting to the second screen, but I enjoyed playing it. Maybe I'm a sadist as well as a kind of psycho. I have no idea, but yeah, it was just fun to play, and that's all I wanted, you know. And it was, I had a jaunty tune going along. I can't remember if it was A Pirate's Life for Me or something. I have no idea what I was playing, but yeah, nice little tune and all that kind of stuff. And like I say, not the best game, but it was $1.99. It was a budget game, you know, and it was good fun, and I really liked it. And it was only years later that I managed to get it for the Amstrad, which isn't quite as good as the Commodore 64 version, but maybe that's just because that's where I played it first. I don't know. But anyway, Booty's a great game. And sticking with games that I suck at but enjoy playing, Impossible Mission, US Gold release, I think it was, with Elvin Atombender. And again, it's Impossible Mission's one of these games that I had no idea what I was doing. You know, you had to find stuff, search things, go into rooms and search computer terminals and filing cabinets and all that to find bits of a map or a computer, I have no idea. But then you could go into certain rooms and complete puzzles and things like that. And again, I had no idea what I was doing, but I loved the fact that the animation on the little guy was brilliant. You know, he'd do this kind of sprint and run, and you could somersault. So you could somersault over the bad guys and trying to get to what they were guarding and things like that. But it was such a bizarre game. So if you've never played an Impossible Mission, then God help you if you've never played half of these games, and you need to stop this video immediately and go and check out the Commodore Top 60 games or something and go and play them all. But Impossible Mission was a sort of adventure game. You had elevators or lifts, and you started off, you could move the lift up and down obviously, and it gave you access to different rooms, and you went into a room, and it was a platform, single screen platform, room with platforms in it. You could fall through the floor. There was certain things that could be triggered that I can't remember, but certain elevators, certain lifts and things, and there was little robots that would stun you and kill you. They were patrolling items like desks or computer terminals, so they would patrol along the little platform, and you had to get past them. I think you pulled down on the joystick and the guy turned towards whatever item he was standing at and started searching it. There was a little kind of timer bar that went down as you were searching. So you had to do it really quickly before this robot came back to get you. And you would search and you would either find an item or you would find nothing. and then you had to get away from the robots and time your jumps to get on certain platforms and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, like I say, I absolutely sucked at it. I had no idea what I was doing. I used to just jump about and kind of find things, and it's like, oh, you can freeze the robots. Yeah, let's do that. So sometimes you would find a terminal and you could activate certain lifts, or you could freeze the robots temporarily, or you know, a couple of other options. So I used to just play about. Again, I didn't know what I was actually doing, and just have the guy run about and do somersaults all over the place. And it was another one. The Commodore 64 and Amstrad versions are very similar graphically, but the audio department is a different story. The C64 version is obviously famous for having the speech intro where Elvin Attenbender says, you know, we have a visitor, stay a while, stay forever, which was really creepy. Except it didn't sound like that. It was the Commodore 64 SID chip, you know, it wasn't that clear. It was like, it did. But it was great, and you know, to hear a computer speak back in the day was astounding. But yeah, so it was like, you know, it was great fun, and it was a great effort with the speech, you know, and I really wish the Amstrad did more of that stuff. But the Commodore 64, obviously, good sound chip, did its thing. So yeah, so the last game I'm going to talk about is Action Biker, starring Curly Collin. So yeah, how Quavers managed to get a tie-in with a biking game, I've no idea. But hey, it was the 80s, anything went, you know, who cares? So Action Biker was another sort of isometric, scrolly around platform collecting type game. The animation on the little bike was really good. So you basically used to ride your bike around this scrolling screen. And I think you were looking for, there was kind of white flashy things, and you had to pick up those items. And when you picked them up, I think it was like parts for your bike that could increase the performance of your bike, or give you better tyres or better turning or whatever. And I don't know if there was, you know, a certain amount of items you had to pick on each level or something like that. But again, didn't know what I was doing, you know, it was just, here's how to control it, go and have fun. And we spent most of our time, there was a part of the map was a sort of theme park, I think, and you could basically drive up onto the roller coaster, and you could, if you were good, you had to get the right timing and all that kind of stuff, but you could kind of ride your bike around the roller coaster, which was quite bizarre. And again, I can't remember what enemies were chasing you or anything like that, but you just drove around this map. It was a free-for-all, you didn't have to stick to roads, you could drive over anything. And you had to pick up, like I say, these items. But it was nothing at all to do with Curly Collin, the Quavers dog. So again, how he managed to get kind of embroiled and all that, I have no idea. But it was a great little game, and again, a Mastertronic title, you know, £2 I think it was. Never got ported to the Amstrad. It was supposed to get ported to the Amstrad, but it got cancelled. But yeah, so it was another one that we used to play on the C64, which was great fun. But yeah, so anyway, listen, that's going to do it for this one. I've waffled enough. I've revealed myself to be a bit of a nutcase, making bizarre noises and talking about punching people off platforms and stuff. I'm a nice guy in real life, honest. I'm not that weird, hopefully. But anyway, that's my memories of the Commodore 64, or certainly the semi-interesting ones. You know, it was a great machine, and I enjoyed having access to it. It was good fun, and it was something different for the Amstrad. But yeah, anyway, that's it. I'm going to stop waffling. Thanks for watching. Do the usual, like, subscribe, all that kind of stuff. Send me comments, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.